You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Cliff Nordyke. Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody and tell them a little bit about yourself and what do you do professionally?
Sure. I'm in my mid-50s. I'm an avid mountain biker. I hunt and I smoke pipes. And professionally, I'm a project manager in the wireless industry. So I take from soup to nuts and build cell towers.
You build cell phone towers?
Yep.
So,
That's
okay.
what our company does.
Have you heard any of the stuff that's going on with 5G lately? Like a lot of people are saying that it's causing these problems with their kids. Now, is that true? Is there anything in relation to that?
Yeah, no, it's all. I mean, you've had those people. They wear the tinfoil hats. They've been doing it ever since cell phones came out. So it doesn't matter what the technology is or what it is, they're going to say that. And I mean, that's one of the things we do. We go to zoning hearings and there's a lot of legal suits and stuff get thrown around, but yeah, there's nothing to it.
I feel like when I'm looking at the news, they're all like 5G made my kid have cancer. I'm like, okay, how are we making that jump so far?
Well, you know what's funny about that is the rest of the world, the U.S. is so far behind in the wireless industry. It's incredible because we went so long with our old AT&T landlines that, the government propped them up and kept them going, where Europe and stuff was so ravaged by war and so many borders and stuff. Wireless came to them pretty quick. It was an easy fix. And so they are light years ahead of us. They've all had 5G a lot longer than anybody. Nothing's changing there and nothing's happening with their kids and stuff. So that's just the way it is. 5G is very secure from a military standpoint and from a private standpoint. And so 4G can be hacked fairly easily. And, and that's one of the things why Trump and stuff is so for 5G pushing it forward is that all of our systems rely on 4G, which can be hacked at any time by a high schooler. So 5G is real secure.
So, but how popular is 5G? I feel like it's just kind of now being like provided by service providers and stuff. It seems like we've always been running on 4G.
Yeah, we have, and 5G is not even here. They tell you, and AT&T will say, "Oh, we got the best 5G network." Well, nobody has it because you don't have a phone that's capable of receiving 5G. Nobody does in the U.S. Apple's a couple years away from even having a phone that'll receive 5G. So it's all a marketing thing, So are they launching 5G? They are. Will it make your 4G a little faster? It will, but it's not technically 5G, and you're not really on 5G. So until you get a new phone that accepts and handles 5G, you won't be on it.
Now, how many times do you come encounter with someone that is protesting or trying to stop you from doing your job as building a cell phone tower, besides going to the official hearing?
You mean just like normal people or actually in the zoning hearings?
Well, who are you dealing with in the zoning hearings? Are you dealing with are we talking about like the EPA type people, the people that want to environmentally friendly, don't cut down the trees, those types of people? Or are we dealing with just average families?
No, it's usually neighborhoods and stuff. People will get together and, because what we'll do is if we're going to put a tower up in a certain area, part of the zoning regulations usually requires us to do notifications with everybody within that area. From that site, within 1,500 feet, any property that touches that 1,500-foot circle gets a letter that says, "Hey, we're going to have a zoning here. If you want to talk on it, come to the city council meeting." And so that's where you'll find that people will show up. But typically, nowadays, it used to be when wireless first came out, because I was all part of that as well. There were people all over the board fighting that. And now, not so much anymore. You've got some groups out there that are fighting it, but that's it.
Why would they be fighting wireless networks if we use it so much today? It seems like everybody, if your kid's going to get cancer from 5G, you still want that quick internet. So little Timmy's just going to have to suffer. One when it comes to like our internet capabilities and types of stuff, we love technology a little bit too much
Yep.
to the point that I don't see it as that big of an issue. It really looks like somebody is trying to get some cash somewhere. Recently in my area of Ocean City, Maryland, we have this beautiful beachfront kind of town. So you get
Hmm.
this square, I mean, so many miles and miles and miles and miles of ocean with nothing in sight. Well, they're looking to make more sustainable power. So they're going to build these wind turbines off the coast. And the problem is that they're going to be so big that it's going to mess up the view. So a lot of people are protesting it. But I'm like, it's safer and cleaner energy though. So it's going to
Yeah.
be so far out, you're barely going to see it. But everyone's like, no, it's still going to block my view of the ocean. I'm like, you never look at it anyway.
Yeah, and those will be the same people that complain about, there's not enough sustainable power. So it's in fact in Arizona here where I'm at, there's one town here called Paradise Valley, which is, the elite of the elite, the rich of the rich, and they don't allow cell phones hardly at all in their little. It's a very small area, but so we try to cover it from the outside. But they don't allow gas stations, they don't allow cell towers except on a couple of rooftops. So it's really hard to cover that area. The number one complaints from all the carriers is from that group of people, the same ones who don't, want us to go there, but then they complain that their phone doesn't work.
I definitely think that the group of people that are probably complaining the most are the ones that don't want to see anything else get built into their lovely view.
Yep.
It seems like they just found a type of news article or something off WebMD that says, oh, did you know 5G also can cause your kids slow growth? And you're like, well, we're going to run with this because this will get it, this will make sure it doesn't ever get built. But it's
Yeah.
like when your power's out, who are you still calling?
Exactly. It's just, it's the typical not in my backyard mentality. I want it, but I don't want it in my backyard.
Yeah, you want access to it, but you don't want to deal with the, structure being there. I think that happens a lot because we're living in areas now where nature is getting very, very torn down, especially like in places like where I live. We're getting community homes that look exactly like the one beside it, built up right next to each other after another one, after another one, after another one. We lost so much land just this past year. All these roads I used to walk on when I was a kid are now just giant community homes that nobody's living in. They're empty housing because they're not selling. They built too many of them. I think that's probably a large sum of the people as well that are sitting there seeing all this happen, because it is kind of a waste of beautiful natural land. There's not that much left of it. But I also think it's pretty interesting when you look at cell phone towers being built, don't they try and disguise them up too? I've come across some things in the wilderness, such as like trees. I would think was like an oak tree, and it was really a cell phone tower designed to like disguise itself as an oak tree.
Yeah, you'd be surprised what you're driving by that's really a cell phone tower. There's a lot of marquee signs you'll see. There's a lot of bell towers with clocks on them. There's, all the different trees out here in Arizona. We have palm trees that have them. We have elm trees. We have all kinds of trees. There's pine trees. They do a lot of things on rooftops and stuff to hide a lot of it. And typically when you get closer to the neighborhoods, and that's what's happened when you're in industrial areas, they don't really care. They throw up a pole because nobody cares if there's a pole next to the trash refuge plant. It's just, that's how they do it.
Now, they're not necessarily doing that to trick people. They're necessarily doing it so it's more, I guess, of an appeal factor. Like if you don't notice that there's a giant cell phone tower, if you disguise it up as something else, more people are going to be willing to have that there and not, try and take it down.
Correct. The cities will basically have in their ordinances, if you're going to be within this certain number of feet or something to a residential area or whatever, it's got to be a disguised tower. So it's got to be an elm tree or on a rooftop or in a clock tower or whatever. So they're all pretty much within the ordinances anymore. And they would still notify all the homeowners in the area that, hey, this is going on. But most people will look at the plans and go, oh, yeah, that's good. Never mind. So,
what are some of the biggest positives that you face in your daily job, like things you enjoy?
Just the interaction with my coworkers. We've got a really good team of people. I ran my own company for about 12 years. I did this all over the world. And then now I'm with a couple guys who got started with me one of them's actually left the company now, is a good friend of mine. He started with me maybe 20 years ago. We were at the same company, and he went off and started his company. Then I came back and I actually worked for him and his partner. And so I've been there for quite a while now. Just a really good group of people that work with me and for me. And that's probably my biggest interactions with my coworkers.
What was one of your worst things that you experienced in your job that you just really don't like? Would it be the interaction with just so many people that are just like so like held with disgust towards you? Because even though you're just doing your job, when they see that approach onto their property, they consider that an attack on them.
No. I mean, I've actually had people at hearings and stuff get real excited about it, how it's going to kill their kids. And here actually in San Francisco, I had a lady spit on me when I was walking down the aisle. And
did you throw down? You had to throw down on that one.
No, I just looked back at the city attorney, and then they came out and took her away. But it's just, people get emotional about it, and it's wild. So
do you think so? Now, kind of verging off into what I really want to ask you too, being a cigar aficionado. So you can talk about, people can sit there and blame you saying you're destroying the earth, but really you're growing the earth as well. So now, do you grow your own product?
No. So I smoke pipes. I don't do too many cigars. Occasionally I will. And in fact, I got into pipes because I didn't care for the taste of cigars. And so that's how I got into pipes. And so I do grow my own tobacco. I have some, but just on a small amount. But most of the stuff I buy, there's thousands of different flavors and types of tobacco across the world.
When did you start doing this? Like, how did this come about? Did you have a certain experience that brought you what's the difference between like pipe tobacco and cigars?
So pipe tobacco is basically loose leaf, or it's in a roll. Cigars are basically leaves that are rolled up, and you'll smoke the whole leaf. Where pipe tobacco is, they'll mix a lot of different leaves together and grind it up. And so it's smaller, so you get better flavor and taste out of it. It's much, much cheaper. I can buy a tin of pipe tobacco for, $15, and I'll get, let's say, 15 bowls out of it, which will take me 45 minutes to an hour to smoke a bowl, where I can spend $20 on a cigar and it's gone in 30 minutes. So
I think also a pipe tobacco, there's a bit more of a wealthy aesthetic to it as well. You pull that thing out, everyone thinks you're about to like reincite something from Shakespeare.
They do.
Any detective movie ever, I'm pretty sure the guy has always had a pipe, like, well, you see. I'm like, oh shit, he's about to drop some knowledge.
Yeah. And so I was always kind of health conscious growing up and in sports and stuff. So I didn't smoke. I smoked cigarettes when I think I was 10 for, I don't know, maybe a half a pack, and just couldn't do it. And so I've never done that. But when I was in high school and in college, I smoked some cigars here and there, and that was kind of it. And I actually, at a drugstore, they had some really cheap tobacco with a cheap pipe on sale together, and I bought it. Burnt the crap out of my tongue trying to, suck a pipe, and threw it all in the trash, tobacco and all, and said, forget that. And it wasn't probably till 2 years ago, a buddy of mine were heading up on a mountain bike trip. We were doing a Durango to Moab trip across the San Juans and the San Marcels. And he's a big cigar smoker. And so we were getting cigars before he left, and we were in the cigar place, and I was telling the guy, I said, I want something mild, because I just hate the taste of cigar in the morning, because it's like licking an ashtray. And he goes, have you ever tried a pipe? And I said, I have. And he's like, well, let's do this, and let's teach you how to really smoke a pipe, because there's a lot to it, a lot more than people think. And so that's how I picked up pipe and never stopped.
So what types of things are more into it than a lot of people wouldn't think? Because from what I know as a pipe, I mean, I'm a relative, like, I vape or something, but when it comes down to like the occasional swisher, but the one time I smoked a cigar, I didn't know until talking to an actual cigar aficionado person. Mm-hmm. And he said it's a commitment. It's not something you can just go around and do stuff. It's more like you have to sit there for like 45 minutes and actually commit on doing it. Same thing with a pipe, I'm guessing, right?
It is, exactly. So a pipe's a little more of a ritual technique. It's more of a calming thing. So one, you've got to pick out your tobacco, and like I'm looking at a wall of tobacco I have here in these jars, and I probably have 450 varieties here that I could pick if I wanted to smoke one right now. So one, you make that decision, and two, then the tobacco comes, most of the time it's a little too moist, so it's got to have a little dry time. Then there's different ways to how to pack it in your pipe. It takes a little finesse to pack it. Depends on the type of tobacco and different things on how it's packed into the pipe. And then on the lights and the relights and the packing and tamping as you smoke the ash down and you push it down further. So, and never inhale.
Oh yeah, see that's a one thing I didn't know about cigars either. Nobody told me that you're not supposed to inhale to smoke. I'm sitting there puffing it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not feeling too good. My cousin's like, you're not inhaling that, are you? I'm like, I am. He goes, that's not good for your body. I'm like, well, I'm committed now.
Exactly. No, that's a bad thing. You start getting sick after those. So, and pipe tobacco is very pure, where cigarettes have so many additives and chemicals and stuff to enhance the nicotine, enhance the addictions. And so, yeah, pipe tobacco is pretty much just pure tobacco. There's no additives or anything in it.
Now, so it's cleaner, so it has no additives in it. Is that what gets done in the chemical process with cigarettes? Is that what they do when they filter out the pack and everything? Do they make it chemically enhanced for, I guess, for the person? Oh,
there's hundreds of chemicals in a cigarette. So they basically take your tobacco, they grind it down, and I watched a thing on how they make the cigarettes. It was pretty fascinating. And they make it into like a liquid paste, and they roll it out real thin, and it's all this tobacco that gets put into these big tumblers, and it basically turns into almost a liquid, and then they add all kinds of chemicals and additives and stuff into it. And they're nicotine enhancers. There's more nicotine. There's all kinds of chemicals in it to preserve it and all this stuff. And so then it basically, it's like almost like, I'm going to say really like cake batter. It gets spread out, and then it dries, and then they run it through, and these cutters, and it shears it. And then those shears get ground up, and then that's what they would call your tobacco, when a good majority of it really isn't tobacco.
Then why is pipe tobacco not seen as popular compared to cigarettes?
I think it's because it's the commitment to do it. I mean, as a cigarette guy, you're going to just grab a cigarette, you're going to run out, you're going to puff it for 10 minutes, and you're going to get your nicotine hit, and you're going to run back in. Pipe smokers, the nicotine, there's not really that high of a level of nicotine because everything has to be absorbed through your mouth and your nose, and nothing goes into your lungs, so it doesn't really get there that way. Now, there are some higher nicotine tobaccos out there, yeah, so that's probably the reason. I think cigarettes are more for a fast-paced world, where a pipe is more of a let's just slow down, sit back, and reflect.
I think a pipe tobacco has more beneficial properties, though. If you look at sitting down and relaxing and smoking it, it gives you the ability to be able to connect with your... Go ahead.
Yeah, they did a study that said that the average pipe smoker, given all things equal, will live a year and a half longer than the person who doesn't smoke a pipe.
Yeah, being much cleaner, I could see that. I also think that it's also on the mental aspect of it too. When you're smoking a pipe, it's a relaxation type thing. It's meant to do when you're hanging out with your friends and stuff, being able to do a get together. If you look throughout history, Native Americans have used peace pipes and smoking pipes to be able to connect and, bond with other members of tribes and also members of their own tribe. It's a form of communication, and it's definitely a group activity. When you look at cigarettes, it seems like people go, oh, I only smoke cigarettes for a social thing. Like if someone pulls one out, it's like, but in reality, you grab that cigarette, you smoke it. The next thing you know, you're going to go out for a cigarette later and nobody's going to be around. And also it makes you smell. So technically it makes you isolate yourself from other people that are not smoking.
Correct.
Cigarettes, I like I said, I think our society's mind's a little bit twisted on the idea when it comes to if someone pulls out a giant pipe tobacco, they're labeled like a wealthy person or an asshole. And I'm like, that's not true. Like if you look at them, they actually have the smart routine with it because they're able to relax and enjoy something. I mean, a lot of people nowadays just feel like, oh, if I'm going to go buy pipe tobacco, I got to have like $100,000. I'm like, you don't need to though.
No, it's cheaper than cigarettes. It's cheaper than cigars, And the Native Americans are the ones that came up with tobacco. It was nowhere else in the world until the colonists got here. And actually, they don't talk about this a lot in the history book, but it's the only crop that saved the colonists. When they started sending tobacco back to Europe, it just exploded. And everybody used a pipe because that's how you smoked tobacco back then, was in a pipe. it wasn't until about, I think, just right around World War II that the cigarette even came out, that anybody even knew about it. Before then, it was always pipes.
So how did you decide to like venture forth into growing your own tobacco? Like, can you take me through the process of that?
Yeah, I'm kind of OCD when it comes to different things in my life, and tobacco happens to be one of them. And
Well, you're putting it in your body. That's something you should be OCD about.
yeah, I just there's a lot of regulations coming about that probably is going to make pipe tobacco either extremely expensive or even go away altogether. And so I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to see if I can start to grow some of my own different tobacco plants. And in Arizona, it's a little harder than in some places, just to see if I could. But I mean, it's tough. I can grow the plants, I have them. But the problem with pipe tobacco is it's the curing process, whether it's smoked or sun dried, or it's got to be just right. So that's the tough part, not growing it so much. So, but yeah, tobacco's going to go away.
Is it just like, okay, so you say tobacco is going to wait. Now we're talking about pipe tobacco, not actual cigarette tobacco.
Well, I mean, there's so many regulations on cigarette tobacco and now vaping. So a lot of states, I'm going to say a lot, but this last year, 2 states, Washington and Utah, you can no longer have pipe tobacco or cigars mailed to that state.
Wow.
So like the law in Arizona reads, you cannot ship any tobacco, cigarettes or rolled your own tobacco or anything, or chewing tobacco or anything like that into the state, with the exception of, and they call it fine cigars and pipe tobacco. So I can still order that, and everybody can get online. They have a lot of different distributors, and you can order all these different things. And it's as far as the world goes, it's pretty cheap. You know, a tin that costs me $12 here, you're going to pay $90 in Australia for it, just because they tax it so much. But
now,
so what's happened?
Is that going to eliminate all forms of smoking it, or is it going to also eliminate dipping as well?
Well, dipping's regulated a lot like cigarettes, just because of the reoccurrence of cancer and stuff and dipping. So that's kind of gets lumped in with smoking, which, you know, however they look at it's fine. But what's happened lately is the vaping's taking over. So vaping's become the big thing. And so like Massachusetts has a bill before the governor right now to ban all flavored tobacco and vaping. Well, pipe tobacco pretty much is considered flavored tobacco, all of it, because when they have to hold the tobacco together, so it either gets a licorice or some kind of sugar or something. They put something on the leaves to keep it together. So it would be considered a flavored tobacco. And most of your cigars are the same way. So with this one bill to stop vaping, they're actually throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because they didn't realize they're going to throw out cigars and pipe tobacco as well.
I feel like the tobacco industry is way too kind of strong or too influenced in today's society for it to go away completely.
I don't know. Philip Morris came out and said they're not going to make cigarettes anymore. They're just going to stick with vaping.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
See, that does disservice to the people that, don't want to pick up a vape. It's the same thing, like to each is their own. There are people that like to smoke pipes and there are people that like to smoke cigarettes. I mean,
yep.
If you're going to find a better way, you can compare them all. Cigarettes are faster, I guess, when you want to smoke them, and pipes are more of a sit down type of group method type thinking. I know so many people that use cigars to bond over. I mean, what do you pull out when you're getting married? You pull out cigars, you pull out pipes, you pull out
or
something.
Having a baby.
Yeah, it's usually in cause for celebration or a nice form of relaxation. A cigarette's just seen as like that little nitty gritty thing, like trying to pick something out of your teeth before a date. That's what a cigarette is. You know what I mean? It's not anything.
And I'm not a cigarette smoker. I don't care for them. I don't like them. I mean, I don't bash somebody because they do smoke a cigarette. That's them. And that's the kind of thing where I think the government's overstepping their bounds a little bit here, because, we're not going to sell to an 18-year-old, but he can go off to war and fight for us, and we're not going to, because he can't make the correct decision, at 18. So he shouldn't be given the choice of whether he should smoke or not. Just some stuff is just real backwards. And I don't think the government needs to meddle in our personal lives to say they can or can't smoke. It's just, yeah.
How did you start getting into just growing it yourself? Like I know you're talking about OCD a little bit and trying to get a cleaner
Yeah.
form of it for yourself, but like where did you go pick up even the materials to be able to do this? I just can't think that you would go and find a random tree and pick off some of the leaves.
Yeah. Nope. You know what? I went on eBay, and you can buy them on Amazon too, I think, and you can order different varieties of pipe tobacco seeds, and they're almost like the size of a pinhead. And all you do is get your ground ready, and you just sprinkle them on top. You don't bury them, you just sprinkle them on top. And then as they grow, you'll pick out the better ones, and you'll pull all the smaller ones out and let the big ones keep going.
What's the length of the average growth for one of these plants?
I have some now that are at about 5 months. Now, typically, they grow back in the South where they grow most tobacco. It's a much shorter growing season. They get to be about probably, I'm going to say, between 4 and 5 feet tall and really big leaves on them. But in Arizona, I'm having issues with mine are growing much slower. They're still growing and getting big and doing their thing, but they're growing much slower. And the other thing you can do too is you can actually buy starters. So they'll send you plants in the mail that are already tobacco plants that are, 1 inch, 2 inch, or 3 inches tall already with leaves on them. And you can transplant those.
Now growing it out in Arizona, that's got to be a little bit more difficult compared to just the environment there. It seems like those are really, really harsh conditions to try and grow anything.
They are. I mean, you can't. And tobacco is almost like a weed. It really just takes off anywhere. And there's actually a native tobacco plant here in Arizona, but it's actually can kill you if you smoke it wrong. So
wait, how does it kill you if you smoke it wrong? Does it have like poisonous leaves?
Yeah, it's poisonous. Yeah, you can look it up. It's poisonous here, and so you got to kind of look for that. And I think some of maybe the Native Americans here played around with it a little bit and do some stuff with it. But yeah, so you just got to be careful. So the stuff that I'm growing is Virginias, which are grown basically in the South. And, but that's all, I mean, it's all going away. Most all the tobacco blenders and stuff are out of Belgium and Germany and different things. We don't hardly blend any tobaccos here in the U.S. at all anymore, just because of the regulations.
Now I've talked to people that smoke cigars and smoke or just drink a nice whiskey or something. What do you find that with a pipe tobacco, what do you find that you pair it with that goes really, really well together? Do you have a certain flavor, like a vanilla mixed with like a beer? Do you do a type of chocolate, a type of food that you'll smoke afterwards, like kind of like an after dinner mint?
Yep, and everybody's different, so it really depends on what tobacco I'm smoking. If I'm smoking one that has a heavy latakia in it, it's almost campfire smell and taste to it. It's tobacco that's been smoked over wood fires, and so I like a little chocolate with that in mine personally. Some people don't. Some people are just purist. I usually drink an iced tea or some sort of sweet iced tea or something when I'm doing mine. A beer occasionally. Sometimes I'll drink a beer. I don't do hard liquor. I had an issue with that when I was younger and haven't drank hard liquor for 30 years. So I don't.
Now, what types of flavors do you find that gets most hit your taste buds?
So the tobaccos go into different categories, and one is called a aromatic. So anything that has any kind of flavoring in it, and flavorings typically range from honey or strawberries or,
Grape.
coffee. Yeah. Anything like that they put in there. That's called an aromatic, and it smells the same way. People will smell and go, "Whoa, that smells really good." They'll always come up to me and ask, a lot of them flavored with vanilla, that type of thing. There's a lot of kitchen spice ones, ginger and cinnamon stuff. I don't like any kitchen spice ones. The other are Virginias and vapors. Virginias are just Virginia tobaccos, and there's different kinds of Virginias, and then they all have a little bit of different taste to them. And the vapors are Virginias mixed with Perique, which is only made in St. James Parish in Louisiana. And it's basically a fermented tobacco leaf in there. It's a burley leaf that's been fermented, and it's kind of like a pepper. So it's used as a condiment in a lot of Virginias. And it is a condiment as in you would use it like you would use pepper on a steak, just a little bit.
Now, is that not considered a pure form of tobacco, considering that it's flavored?
That one's not, because it's not really flavored, because it's just fermented. And so
Because
tobacco, go ahead.
I've smoked a Swisher that was like black cherry, and I've smoked one that was a white Russian, and I'm sitting there smoking,
Yeah.
and I'm like, this cannot be pure tobacco, not even close. Like, how do they get it flavored? It's like when you walk into a store and there's a bunch of
Yep.
scented candles. It's like, how the hell did they do that?
Yeah. So there's what's called, they do a couple of things. One is called a topping. So they'll just take like vanilla and they'll spray pure vanilla on the leaves itself, on the tobacco itself. That's a topping. And the other one is where they just basically, to put the tobacco together, they'll mix it with something to hold it together. That's not so much a topping. That doesn't get flavored that way. But yeah, the number one selling is the aromatics. Probably number two is the Virginias. And then in Europe, they have it here too, but they're called Lakelands. And the Lakelands to me are like smoking my grandmother's perfume.
Oh my God.
And it to me, it's disgusting. People here love it. It ghosts your pipe. If you ever get a pipe that you smoked Lakeland, you can tell as soon as you put it in your mouth. And it literally tastes like my grandmother's perfume. Some people describe it as a really strong soap. But the English seem to love it. And there's a lot of guys here in the U.S. that love it.
I feel like one of the worst flavors probably to smoke would be pumpkin spice. Like if some dude's just like, "Hey, it's coming close to Halloween. Might as well smoke this," and then you smoke it, you're like, "This honestly just hurt me emotionally."
You know what they do? They do have pumpkin spice, and in fact, I'm looking at one right now from Sutliff. It's a pumpkin spice, and
that's
yeah,
one you just keep on your wall. That's not even one you smoke.
Yeah. And see, and here's the funny thing about pipe tobacco is it ages like wine. The longer it sits, the better it gets and the more money worth it becomes.
So do you try and when you buy, do you try and find a flavor and also an age that is relatively older?
If you can, it's hard to buy that way just because of the price. So if you can buy a tin of tobacco, let's say that you can buy it for $15, and you buy one that's 20 years old, that's going to be $85. Now, the difference between the two is, in my opinion, a lot, but not enough to pay the extra money. Some guys will pay it. So typically what I do is when I buy tobacco, I have what they call it. I have a cellar, a tobacco cellar. And so I'll buy a lot of extras on stuff that I really like. I'll store pounds of it. And so I know that if something ever happens, the government says no more pipe tobacco, then I can smoke till I'm 90 and my friends can smoke. And it's worth a lot of money because it's longer it ages.
With the process of growing your own, have you ever thought about trying to make your own brand of tobacco, like a certain flavor, maybe some mixtures and chemicals to try and design one?
So I have played around with that, but not growing my own, because here's the problem with growing your own. Legally, you can grow your own for your own self-consumption. You can't give it away and you can't sell it. So, but I can buy tobaccos, like I can buy straight Virginia, straight Perique, straight Latakia, straight, different blending tobaccos. And then I can play with the mixes and do different things and come up with my own blends, which I've done. And I have some really good ones that I really like that I smoke a lot. But yeah, so you can blend your own that way, but you can't grow it and do it. Not in Arizona, at least.
Now, when you blend them together like that, can you change the brand name to it? Can you make it your own, like, kind of flavor?
You could. I don't know. But now the problem is, I don't know why you would. Like I have one I call Aragorn, from The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I know.
That's
pretty badass.
Yeah, which is my own blend of, probably about 5 different tobaccos, which I really enjoy. It's an aromatic, but it's really nice and mellow. But I couldn't really sell it because I don't have a license to sell tobacco. And then you have to be a distributor. And then like my buddies down at the B&M, the brick and mortar that sell pipe tobacco and cigars, they actually had to get a manufacturer's license to have somebody come in and make cigars. They have their own line of cigars at that store. So it's the regulations are just outrageous. So typically, like if you were going to sell goods in a store, let's say you owned a hardware store, you would buy the nuts and bolts from a distributor, and they wouldn't charge you tax for them. And then when you sold them, you would charge the tax and pay the state and the federal and all that stuff for what you sold. With tobacco, when that tobacco hits that store, they have to pay all the tax and all the excise taxes. It's like gasoline. They add all these taxes onto tobacco up front. Before it ever gets, as it goes into the store, they have to write a check and pay for all that up front.
So in a fantasy world, I'm going to ask you this question. All right. We're going to throw out all laws here.
Okay.
If you were going to make your own brand of pipe tobacco, what would you call the name of it besides the one you already have? If you had to think of a couple flavors that you would mix them together, like give me a good combination.
I would probably call it, I can tell you right now because I've already thought about it.
I knew it. I had a feeling you did. We're talking about this and I'm thinking of it in my head. I'm like, all right, if I thought about it, he's come across that.
Yeah. I would call my first flavor April Morning after my wife. So.
Ooh, okay. Now what's the flavor to it though? Is it sassy? Is that why you call it?
No, it's gonna be an early morning, which is gonna be a stout Latakia blend, which is for people that know how to smoke, basically.
All right, so professional grade tier 1. All right. Now, what label have you thought of a label design for it? Like what your picture would look like?
No.
You gotta spice up the can.
Yeah, there's guys that, and I know what you're talking about. What they do the exact. There's a guy named Ken Byron. And he does the same thing. He mixes his own tobaccos and sells them. He has a license, and so he sells them. And his are very limited runs. He'll run into some really old, 15-year-old Virginia, and he'll buy a bunch of it, and he'll make his own blends, and he'll sell whatever it is, maybe 30 pounds of it, and then be done. It's gone. He can't do it anymore. So then so he comes up with all kinds of different blends all the time. I buy a lot of his stuff. It's very, very, very good. And people have to have a knack for it. They've got to be able to know it and taste it. And, it's kind of like a guy that can taste wine. They've got to know it to be able to do it.
It's kind of what happened. My buddy owns a vape shop. And when I first started vaping, like when I just like barely even owned a starter, I was just like kind of doing it as like, oh, this is kind of cool, I guess. But I remember I started making flavors and the combinations that I wanted using, like, let's say I wanted something refreshing. So I do a nice coconut mixed with like something with like a fruit, like a strawberry. Then I just started grabbing a bunch of stuff I thought would taste good for me, like what stuff I liked, started making one. And actually he made me my own flavor using the kind of ideas, like the percentages I was telling him to put in. And he actually sold it in his vape shop. And it was actually one of the popular ones around here too. I called it the Babylonian Badfish.
There you go.
And everyone's like, why would you call it that? I'm like, because what's more badass than like a 12-syllable word? And we had this cool picture design for it, but it was like a #1 seller. And then I made something else like the Crooked Fist. And it was just a bunch of like weird kind of tangent kind of names and kind of weird twist arounds. And it became really, really popular. But it was interesting to watch that grow too, where I thought of the idea of playing around and maybe trying to make a label for it too. Yeah. That's one of the main reasons why I asked you about it, because when you get so involved into something, and plus you're sitting there watching like a plant grow, and then a little bit down the line, you're smoking that same plant. The feeling you get from that has to be way more intense than you would just from buying it off the shelf.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I would compare it to make homemade bread from scratch. It's just, there's something about it that is better.
Has a little bit more character to it. I definitely think that, like I try and tell people as much as possible, like, a lot of people want to go and diss off somebody, be like, oh, he does that. Oh, that's not cool. Oh, he does that. It's not cool. I'm like, why don't you see it from their perspective as well? I mean, it's not hard to understand why a person does something or why a person has came to the conclusion on things. I mean, I'm a novice smoker in general. I mean, I do it every now and again, but like you've given me a whole new insight on this stuff. I've had someone that's basically turned my whole thinking of cigars around. You just turned my whole thinking of pipe tobacco around. First of all, when I go into my local CVS and I see the giant Gandalf pipe sitting at the bottom, I'm going to be like, that's going to be a hell of a lot more badass than I guess anything else like buying a cigarette or something.
Yeah, don't buy those though. Go to a decent pipe store because those Gandalf ones, I mean, they're the cheap ones. They're bad wood.
Now, I do want to bring up the fact that if you look at any of these pipe tobaccos, they are not just pipe tobacco, but pipes in general. They have some very elegant, beautiful designs onto them.
They do. And pipes are like cars. You can buy one for, $40 or you can buy one for $100,000. They're works of art that people smoke, and some people, they don't smoke them.
Do you find that you have a collection of pipes? It seems like there's a Monday morning pipe and a Tuesday evening pipe. It looks like, because I feel like there's so many combinations out there, especially the ones, the capabilities of making them travel too. You can unequip them, kind of take off the mouthpiece, take off a bunch of different parts and put it into a case. It's all about like carrying your own equipment. I remember I found that out at a bowling alley when people started bringing their own bowling balls in. I was like, holy shit, we can customize these.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's that way. So there's there's three kinds of people in the pipe world. There's people they call the TAD or PAD, which is tobacco acquisition disorder or pipe acquisition disorder. And some people have both. I'm more of a TAD guy. I'm really into tobaccos more so than pipes. I have some really nice pipes that I've gotten good deals on just from people that collect and stuff. And that's the thing. They call them estate pipes. They're pipes that have always been smoked. And so you buy them and they get cleaned up and you smoke them again. And they talk about an estate pipe. And really, because pipes will last 100 years. Like I have a Dunhill pipe that was made in 1819. So it's 100 years old, or no, 1919. At World War, just after the war. So it's 100 years old, and it still smokes. I smoke it.
Now you got to be you're basically smoking history, man.
Yeah, and you think about it, because they say you never own a pipe. You're just the steward of that pipe for a short time. And I mean, so Dunhills are made in England. They were given out during the war for free, and they became one of the top pipe makers in the world for quite a while. So, and people, I think about it, what guy had this sitting there smoking this, contemplating, did he have a son in the war? Was he in the war? He's in England during World War II. What's going on? When's he smoking his pipe? It's just the history behind these things that you don't know about is just incredible. And, getting these old pipes it's fascinating.
I start to look at all the different pipes and stuff, especially like on your Instagram too. I'm looking and seeing all these different variations of pipes. A lot of them look like they're basis of wood. Some of them like ceramic glass. Some, they're very, very elegant. The first thing I would think of that I would want to pipe out of is I want to grab a giant one of those those rams. I want to grab its horn and smoke. Smoke some pipe tobacco out of that. Because I mean, if you're smoking tobacco out of a freaking ram's horn, you're pretty badass.
Yeah. So there's basically three types of pipe. There's clay pipes, which if you drop it, they shatter. And that's what everybody smoked back in, the day, in the 1700s. And then there's meerschaum pipes, which are a stone. And that's the ones you kind of see with all the carvings on them and the people's faces and the old men and stuff. Those are actual stone carvings. And the other is briar, and that's a wood out of the Mediterranean. And that's what most all the pipes are made from. Wood pipes are all made out of this briar wood. It's a root, and it holds the heat, and it doesn't burn real, and through the things, and it gets a coating on it from the tobacco, so it doesn't burn through. And so most all wood pipes are made out of briar, probably 99% of them. So if you have a pipe that you're going to buy that's not briar, don't buy it.
So now you say you care more about the tobacco, but do you have a pipe that's fit for different occasions, such as like I know you go out on your walks or your hikes or something?
Yeah,
do you have
So I have pipes basically for different tobaccos. So I'll smoke all of my Virginia, because a Virginia tobacco smokes better when it's in a smaller but taller bowl. and a Latakia wants to breathe, so it's better in a big, wide, fat, open bowl. So my pipes are more geared for that. What they call lunting, when you go out hiking with a pipe, or if I'm out mowing the lawn or lunting, I take basically a cheap pipe that I know if I drop and step on or drop it in the mower, I don't care. But you get some of these pipes, like I have, are hand carved. There's artists that custom make them for you. So those are the ones you don't want to run around with.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to take the $80,000 pipe and try to go hiking with it.
Yeah,
something might happen. Hey, I really appreciate you coming out and doing the podcast, man. It's been awesome talking to you.
Yeah, it's been great. I had a great time with you, Rob. It's been fun.
I want to give you a minute here at the end. If people want to follow your Instagram, Mormon Pipes,
sure.
Or anything you want to say out there to the people, let them know where they can find you, or anything you just kind of warn them or tell them about the tobacco industry for someone that might be smoking for the first time.
Yeah, just you know what, it's a lot harder than people think, but everybody at these pipe stores and stuff are very knowledgeable. And if you just go into them and say, hey, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just starting out, because it happens every day. They're going to show you, get you a basket pipe for $20, get you a little tobacco, and then teach you how to smoke the pipe so you have a good experience with it. And that's the thing. So, or you can just reach out to me. You can probably message me on my Instagram, which is just Mormon Pipes. And then I can answer questions for anybody as well. So, or put you into touch with somebody that can answer them. And there's a lot of forums out there, Pipe Smoker forums and Pipe Smoker Magazine forum, and Brotherhood and stuff, Briar Brotherhood and stuff. So
I know one thing: when I go to Arizona, I'm coming to you, man. We're going to smoke a pipe on top of a cell phone tower.
You bet. And you got hundreds of different tobaccos to pick from, so we'll do it.
Hundreds of different tobaccos to pick from, and only one 5G network to sit there and watch it all go down.
We probably won't have a phone that'll work with it, so we'll be okay.
Well, thanks so much for being on this episode Out of the Blank, and stay tuned for our next episode.